They did not call her by name. Names made things human, and tonight she was not meant to be human. She was escorted down the corridor like a delivery that had arrived late and already caused irritation. Hands did not touch her gently or violently. They did not need to. Their words did the work instead. Keep her moving. Watch the door. Don't let her slow us down. She walked because stopping would invite attention, and attention was dangerous. She had learned that early, as a child, as a girl, as a woman whose body had always been treated like a problem someone else had to solve. She kept her eyes lowered, not in shame, in calculation. Floors did not judge, walls did not laugh. Looking ahead only invited faces, and faces always carried opinions. They spoke over her shoulder, as if she were a crate that might tip over if handled incorrectly. She's more trouble than she's worth. Never useful enough to justify the space. Should have gotten rid of her sooner. Each sentence landed with practiced ease, the kind that comes from repetition. They had said these words before, maybe not about her, maybe about others like her, women who took up too much room in a world that demanded they shrink. She did not cry. Crying never helped. Tears made men impatient. Tears gave them permission to be cruel and call it honesty, so she swallowed everything. Fear, humiliation, the dull ache in her chest that came from knowing this moment had been decided long before she entered the room. She knew where they were taking her. Everyone did. The door at the end of the hall was heavy, reinforced, scarred by history. Men slowed as they reached it, not out of respect for her, but for what waited on the other side. The Mafia boss. The monster. The punishment. She had imagined him in pieces for years. A raised hand, a cruel mouth, eyes full of hunger. Something that would make sense of why people like her always ended up here. Something that would confirm the lie she had been fed her whole life, that she was made to be consumed. The door opened. They stopped her 3 steps inside, like they were afraid proximity might contaminate them. "She's yours now," one of the men said, forcing a laugh that did not land. "Consider it compensation." Compensation. As if she were a debt settled, a broken tool handed off so no one else had to deal with it. Another voice chimed in too quickly. Couldn't run, couldn't hide, caused more damage than she was worth. They were justifying themselves. That was when something felt wrong. Men like this did not justify, they boasted, they blamed, they moved on. Justification meant fear. She lifted her eyes for the first time. He sat in the shadowed chair at the far end of the room, not looming, not pacing, simply there, fingers steepled, posture relaxed, expression unreadable to the point of indifference. He did not look at her body. He did not look angry. He did not look pleased. He looked bored. That terrified her more than shouting ever could. Violence, she understood. Violence followed rules. Boredom meant anything could happen. The room waited. She waited. This was the moment everyone had promised her. The moment when pain would arrive to prove that survival had only been a delay. She braced herself not for suffering, but for erasure. For becoming a lesson someone else would use. The boss finally lifted his gaze. Not to the men. To her. For a single breathless second, the world narrowed to that look. Not hunger, not disgust, calculation, but not of her body, of the cruelty standing behind her. "Leave," he said. His voice was calm, flat, almost tired. The men hesitated. "She's..." "I said leave." He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Power settled around the words like gravity. They vanished, fast, relieved. The door shut behind them with a finality that made her heart stutter. Locked. She stood alone with him. Her pulse roared in her ears. This was it. Alone now, no witnesses, no excuses. He stood slowly, tall enough that instinct made her step back. She hated herself for that reflex, but she did not fight it. Survival was not pride. Survival was response. "What did they say you did?" he asked. Her throat tightened. "They said I failed." "Failed at what?" She searched for the right answer, the one that would hurt less, being useful. Silence followed. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Not cruelly, not loudly, bitterly, like someone hearing a joke that had gone stale years ago. They used you, he said, because you were convenient. She stared at him, confused, disoriented. You're not afraid, he observed. I am, she said honestly. I just don't have anywhere left to put it. Something shifted in his expression, subtle, controlled. Look at me, he said. She did. You were not given to me as punishment, he said. You were given to me because they believed I would erase you. Her chest tightened painfully. They thought wrong. He stepped past her and opened the door behind her. Light spilled into the room. Go, he said. She did not move. Why, she whispered. Because I don't destroy people to make cowards feel powerful. Her knees nearly gave out. Behind her, the monster everyone feared remained standing in the shadows, defined not by rage, but by restraint. And in that moment, everything she thought she knew about safety, punishment, and power began to fracture. The room they gave her was quiet in a way that felt dangerous. Quiet was never neutral in her life. Quiet usually meant waiting. Waiting for a voice to rise. Waiting for footsteps. Waiting for permission or punishment. She stood just inside the doorway for a long time before entering fully. As if the floor might reject her. As if the walls might change their minds. The bed was untouched. Clean sheets. No stains. No restraints. No instructions. Food sat on the table still warm. Water poured into a glass. Nothing locked from the inside. This should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like standing on ice that had not cracked yet. She did not sit at first. Sitting meant settling. Settling meant believing. Believing had always been the most dangerous thing. She stayed standing because standing meant ready. Ready to leave. Ready to defend. Ready to disappear if necessary. They had not told her the rules. That terrified her. Rules could be learned. Rules could be obeyed. Rules gave structure to pain. This had none. She finally sat on the edge of the bed, not fully committing her weight. As if even rest had to be earned. Her mind replayed the moment again and again. The way the men had been dismissed. The way the door had opened. The way he had said go. No shouting. No threat. No demand. That was what unsettled her the most. People who were cruel were predictable. They wanted reactions. They wanted submission. They wanted proof that they mattered. This man wanted nothing. And that absence felt like standing in front of something vast and unknowable. She ate slowly. Not because she was hungry, but because hunger reminded her she was still a body. And bodies had always been used against her. Every bite felt like it might trigger something. A comment. A look. A reminder of cost. Nothing happened. Later, when the house grew quieter, she heard movement outside the door. Not approaching. Passing. No one stopped. No one checked. No one guarded. The freedom felt staged. Like bait. She lay down fully clothed. Hands folded over her stomach. The place people always stared first. The place they blamed first. Sleep came in pieces. Never deep. Never safe. When she woke before dawn, she was certain something would have changed. That kindness would have expired overnight. It had not. The house moved around her with cautious distance. Servants avoided her eyes. Guards nodded but did not stare. She was not invisible. And she was not targeted. She did not know which was worse. When she finally saw him again, it was in the corridor outside a study. He was reading something on a tablet. Expression unchanged. He did not comment on her presence. Did not order her away. Did not summon her closer. She spoke before fear could stop her. Why am I still here? He looked up slowly. Not surprised. Not irritated. Because you are. The answer made no sense. And yet it felt intentional. They sent me to be dealt with, she said. He closed the tablet. They sent you to be erased. Her chest tightened. Erased was worse than punished. Punishment meant existence had been acknowledged. She waited for him to explain. He did not. Silence stretched. Heavy but not hostile. You can leave if you want, he said. The words landed wrong. Leave meant being returned. Leave meant being sent somewhere else to finish what had started. Where would I go, she asked. He did not answer immediately. Because that was not the point. Stay then, he said. If you choose. Choice. The word felt unreal in her mouth. What do you want from me, she asked. Nothing. That single word hit harder than any demand ever had. She had been trained to barter herself. Labor. Obedience. Silence. Endurance. Nothing was the one thing she did not know how to give. He studied her for a moment. Not her body. Not her posture. Her restraint. You believe invisibility is safety, he said. She did not deny it. It has kept me alive. Sometimes, he said. It only delays the cost. She felt the truth of that settle in her bones. You will not be harmed here, he continued. Not because you are weak, but because harm without purpose is waste. Waste was something this man despised. She realized then that she was not being spared out of mercy. She was being spared out of principle. And principles in this world were far more dangerous than kindness. That night, as she returned to the room, she finally understood the shift. She had not been rescued. She had been refused. And refusal, in a world built on cruelty, was the most powerful disruption of all. By morning, the house had learned her presence without understanding it. She felt it before anyone spoke. The pause when she entered a hallway. The way footsteps adjusted their rhythm. The careful lowering of voices that did not stop completely. She had lived her whole life, learning how rooms reacted to her. This was different. It was not disgust. It was calculation. Servants moved with precision now. Not hurried. Not careless. As if uncertainty had sharpened every movement. Guards stood straighter. Hands closer to their sides. Eyes forward. They did not look at her directly. But they tracked her. Not like prey. Like a variable. She kept her shoulders rounded. Kept her gaze low. Old instincts screaming that attention was dangerous. The dining room was vast and cold. Marble floors that echoed even the smallest misstep. A table long enough to make distance feel intentional. She took the seat farthest from the head. Because distance meant safety. Because space could still be controlled. Food was placed in front of her. More than she could eat. Untouched. Unchallenged. Every sound made her tense. Chairs shifting. Cutlery clinking. Breaths drawn too sharply. This was where cruelty usually announced itself. Public spaces were designed for reminders. Then he entered. No announcement. No flourish. The air changed instantly. Conversations stopped. Not slowly. Not politely. They died. He took his place at the head of the table. Movement economical. Face unreadable. He did not look at her. And somehow that felt louder than a stare. Men waited. That was the first rule of this house. They waited. He began eating. Slow. Controlled. As if even hunger was something he refused to indulge. Someone finally spoke. Carefully. They are asking questions. His fork paused midair. About her. Silence tightened. They want to know if she is temporary. The word cut through her. Temporary meant disposable. Temporary meant borrowed mercy. She stared at her plate. Hands folded tightly in her lap. He placed the fork down. She is under my protection. The words were simple. Their effect was not. A chair scraped. Someone inhaled sharply. Another man shifted his weight, as if the ground had changed beneath him. Protection was not offered casually in this world. It was currency. It was threat. It was declaration. She felt heat rise in her chest. Not pride. Fear. Protection meant being seen. And being seen had always been the beginning of punishment. The rest of the meal passed in silence. Food forgotten. Tension thick. Later she wandered into the garden unsure if she was allowed. No one stopped her. That frightened her more than chains. Iron fencing surrounded the grounds. High. Impenetrable. Designed to keep threats out, or in depending on who you were. He stood near the fence. Jacket discarded. Sleeves rolled. Feeding a black horse with deliberate calm. She watched him for a long moment before speaking. You do not look like a monster. The words escaped before fear could stop them. He did not turn. Monsters do not look like anything he said. They act. She stepped closer. Careful. Measured. Why did you keep me here? He fed the horse another apple. Because I do not accept gifts wrapped in cruelty. They said I embarrassed them, she said. They embarrassed themselves, he replied. Her voice dropped. They said I was useless. He finally turned to face her. Useless people do not survive what you did. Her throat tightened. You do not know me. I know enough, he said. You walked into my house expecting death and did not beg. She looked away. Begging never saved me. Something shifted in his eyes. Not softness. Recognition. You should understand this, he said. I have rules. She nodded quickly. I will not break them. That is not what I said, he replied. I said I have them. He met her gaze. No one in this house touches you without permission. No one speaks to you with disrespect. No one uses you as an object. Her voice shook. And if they do, they answer to me. She believed him. Not because he was kind. Because he was exact. This is not charity, he continued. Then what is it? He considered the question. Balance. She frowned. The world you came from believes strength is humiliation. I believe strength is restraint. That makes you different, she said. That makes me dangerous, he replied. As she walked back inside, she understood something that made her chest ache. They had not given her a place in his house. He had redrawn the rules of the house around her. And in doing so, he had turned her existence into a line no one was allowed to cross. She thought she understood silence. She had lived inside it her whole life. But this silence was different. It did not press down. It waited. Days passed without incident. And that terrified her more than violence ever had. Violence announced itself. Violence prepared you. This did not. She moved through the house like a ghost. Careful not to disturb the shape of things. Careful not to exist too loudly. She avoided mirrors. Because mirrors reminded her of the thing the world had always judged first. Her body. Too large. Too visible. Too much. She had learned early that bodies like hers were explanations. Explanations for anger. For impatience. For cruelty. If something went wrong, it was because she existed. If something broke, it was because she took up space. She had survived by making herself small in every way that mattered. She ate slowly. Not because she was not hungry, but because hunger felt like a demand. And demands were punished. She slept lightly, always listening, always ready. Then she saw him punish someone. Not her. Never her. It was small, almost invisible. A man laughed at a server for spilling wine. Just a sound. Quick. Dismissive. The boss did not raise his voice. did not threaten. He simply stood, looked at the man, and said, "Leave." The laughter died instantly. Later, she heard the man was gone. Position erased. Access removed. No explanation offered. Another day, a lieutenant argued over money meant for families of the dead. The boss listened, then closed the account, and removed the man from the house. No shouting. No spectacle. Order restored. She began to notice the pattern. Cruelty that served no purpose disgusted him. Waste angered him. Humiliation bored him. This was not mercy. This was structure. One afternoon, she overheard two servants whispering. "She is still here. Boss has not sent her away. You think she is special." A pause. "I think she is untouchable." The word struck her like a blow. Untouchable did not mean safe. It meant attention. It meant expectation. That night, memories came uninvited. School hallways filled with laughter that followed her. Family members speaking around her, not to her. Love offered with conditions she could never meet. She curled in on herself, fists pressed against her mouth, trying not to make noise. Do not trust it. Do not hope. Hope gets punished. The next morning, she made a mistake. A tray slipped from her hands in the kitchen. Ceramic shattered. Sound echoing sharp and final. The room froze. She dropped to the floor instantly. Old reflex. Trained response. "I am sorry. I will clean it. I will pay." Her heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy. This was how it always began. The door opened. He entered. The room locked into stillness. What happened? No one answered. He looked at the shards, at her shaking hands. "And you are all standing here like someone was hurt." Silence. He turned to her. "Are you injured?" She shook her head. "Good." He looked at the others. "Clean it carefully." Then he left. No lecture. No punishment. No reminder of her place. She stayed on the floor long after the room resumed movement. Relief crept in slowly. And relief frightened her. Because relief meant something else was growing. Something dangerous. Belief. Later that evening, she laughed quietly at something small. Something the gardener said. It slipped out before she could stop it. She saw him watching from across the courtyard. Shame rushed through her. She stopped immediately. She should not laugh here. She should not exist loudly. That night, he spoke without looking at her. "You do not need to disappear." Her chest tightened. "I am not. You are. All the time." She had no answer. He did not push. Another rule. He waited. Later, a tailor arrived to adjust clothing. When it was her turn, the woman hesitated. "We do not usually carry sizes like this." The old fear surged. She stepped back. "It is fine. I can manage." His voice cut through the room. "You will carry whatever size I require." The tailor nodded quickly. Later, she whispered, "You did not have to." "Yes, I did. They sent me here because of this," she admitted. "Because I was inconvenient." He looked at her fully. "They sent you here because cruelty was cheaper than accountability." She shook her head. "People like me are easy to blame." "I understand perfectly," he said. "That is why I did not send you away." Her voice trembled. "I am not strong. I just endure." He studied her. Endurance is strength that has not been named yet. That night she cried. Not from pain. From recognition. And she realized something terrifying. The world always punished women who took up space. But this man, this monster, he punished the ones who tried to erase them. The underworld noticed the change before it understood it. It always did. Power shifts announce themselves quietly first. in delayed messages, in meetings postponed without reason, in men choosing their words as if glass lined their throats. She felt it in the way the house breathed. The rhythm had changed. Not relaxed. Alert. Guards checked entrances twice. Then a third time. Not because there was danger, but because something had become unpredictable. She did not mean to be. She was still quiet, still careful, still carried herself like an apology. But the world had begun to look at her differently. Not as a burden, not as a joke, as a consequence. It started with whispers. They say he has gone soft. They say he is distracted. They say he let a woman rewrite his rules. She heard them without meaning to. Fragments drifting through halls. Half sentences dropped when she entered a room. She wanted to shrink again, to fold herself back into safety, to give the world its comfort. He did not let that happen. The first test came quickly. A shipment arrived late at the docks. Routine. Boring. Until it was opened. Inside was a girl. Bound. Silent. Placed there like payment. Men laughed when the report came. They thought it clever. A reminder. A warning. The boss listened without expression. Where is she? The laughter stopped. She was returned within the hour. Untouched. Fed. Wrapped in a coat too large for her. By morning, the warehouse responsible was ash. Accounts frozen. Allies silent. No bodies displayed. No message carved in blood. The message was absence. The underworld did not know how to answer that. Inside the house, she felt the shift like pressure in her chest. Servants moved with purpose now. Not fear. Respect. Guards stood nearer. Not crowding. Not watching. Protecting. She hated it. I do not want this, she said one evening. They stare. They stare because they are recalculating, he replied. I never wanted to change anything. You did not, he said. They did. The weight of that truth pressed down on her. I do not deserve this kind of power. He turned sharply. You do not need to deserve safety. The words stayed with her, echoing in places she had locked away. But the underworld did not adapt quietly. An older family made a move. They took a woman connected to one of his allies. Sent word that tradition still ruled. He responded personally. Alone. No entourage. No negotiation. The woman returned before sunset. The family patriarch was removed by his own men. Fear shifted into obedience. Obedience reshaped the city. She watched from the edges. Guilt threading through her chest. They are doing this because of me. They are doing this because it should have been done long before you arrived. She hesitated. What if they turn on you? He met her gaze. Then they were never allies. She began to understand. He was not protecting her from the underworld. He was protecting the underworld from becoming something he despised. And she was the proof that cruelty had gone too far. Rumors grew darker. They said she had bewitched him, that she was his weakness, that she was dangerous. She heard them, felt them brush against old scars. I do not want to be your weakness, she said quietly. You are not my weakness, he replied immediately. What am I then? He considered her. You are the reminder. Of what? Of who I refuse to become. The words frightened her more than threats ever had. Because reminders could be lost. And rules built on principle always demanded blood before they were accepted. She felt it then. The underworld watching. Testing. Waiting. She was no longer invisible. She was the line. And lines in this world were never crossed without violence. The truth did not arrive like a blow. It never did in her life. It came the way pain always found her. Quiet. Uninvited. Too late to stop. She was walking past the West Wing when voices drifted through a half-open door. She would have kept going. She always kept going. Until she heard her own name. I never meant for him to keep her. Her steps slowed without her permission. That was not the agreement. Another voice answered. Cold. Controlled. There was no agreement that involved cruelty. A nervous laugh followed. You know what they meant. Her heart began to pound. They sent her to be broken. A message. An example. Her breath caught so sharply it hurt. They chose the wrong man. Silence stretched. Heavy. Dangerous. They said she embarrassed them. Her existence. Her body. Her refusal to disappear. The next words landed like a verdict. They wanted you to do what they were too cowardly to finish. She did not hear anything else. The world tilted. Sound drained. Her legs weakened. She was not punishment. She was disposal. She backed away slowly. Careful not to make a sound. Careful not to let the house see her breaking. Her room felt smaller than it ever had. The walls too close. The air too thin. She locked the door with shaking hands. Slid down against it. Pressed her fists to her mouth. They had never wanted her corrected. Never wanted her taught. Never wanted her to learn. They wanted her gone. Quietly. Cleanly. Without consequence. Everything made sense now. The way people avoided her eyes. The surprise when he kept her alive. The fear that followed her through the halls. She had survived something she was not meant to. That night, she did not go to dinner. He noticed. He always noticed. Hours later, the door opened softly. He did not force it. Did not knock. She sat on the floor. Knees drawn tight. Eyes dry from crying too long. You heard, he said. She nodded. They did not send me because I was useless, she whispered. No. They sent me because I was inconvenient. Yes. Her voice cracked. They wanted me erased. He knelt in front of her. Careful. Keeping distance. Why did you not, he asked. She laughed hollowly. Why did you not finish it? Because I recognized it. Recognized what? The moment when cruelty disguises itself as necessity. Anger surged through her grief. People like me always get erased. Quietly. Politely. With excuses. Not here. She shook her head. You already changed everything. I never asked for that. You never had to. She stared at the floor. If I had been thinner, prettier, easier to love. He cut in sharply. That is a lie they taught you to survive. She flinched. Survival lies poison you eventually, he said more softly. She pressed her hands into the carpet. I am tired of being strong. I know. Silence settled between them. Not empty. Heavy. Did you ever consider sending me away, she asked. No. Not once. The answer landed deeper than reassurance. They will come after you for this. They already are. And if they win. He met her eyes. Then I accept the consequences. You could have stayed neutral. Neutrality is how cruelty survives. The truth shifted something inside her. She had not been spared because she was fragile. She had been spared because she was evidence. Proof that the system worked exactly as it was designed to erase without guilt. And he had refused to participate. She looked at him then. Really looked. You are not protecting me from them. No. You are protecting them from becoming something worse. He gave a small nod. She understood the danger now. She was not his weakness. She was his defiance. And the underworld did not punish kindness. It punished disruption. That night, she did not curl into herself. She lay flat on the bed. Eyes open. Breathing steady. The punishment had never been about her flaws. It had been about their fear. Fear that someone they deemed unworthy might still exist. Fear that she could survive without permission. And now that fear had a name. And it was hers. The change did not come with anger. It came with exhaustion. She woke one morning and realized she was tired. Not tired of fear, but tired of apologizing for surviving it. Tired of moving like her body was an apology. Tired of holding her breath in rooms that no longer rejected her. Tired of shrinking for people who had already decided what she deserved. She rose before dawn and dressed carefully. Not to hide, but out of habit. Then she stopped, stood still, and straightened her shoulders. It felt wrong. Dangerous. Like stepping into open water. She walked the halls without hugging the walls. Lifted her chin just enough to see faces instead of shoes. People noticed. They always did when someone broke an unspoken rule. Servants paused. Guards adjusted their stance. Eyes followed her openly now. Not mocking. Not hostile. Measuring. She ate when she was hungry. Not when food appeared. That alone felt like rebellion. When spoken to, she answered clearly. Without rushing. Without apology. The house adapted around her. Slowly. Reluctantly. That afternoon, the first real test arrived. A delegation entered without warning. Old families. Older power. Men who believed the world belonged to them because it always had. They filled the study with voices and confidence. Ignored her presence completely. She stood near the window. Silent. As she always had. She should leave, one of them said. This does not concern her. The words hit an old reflex. Her body prepared to retreat. She did not. I am not leaving, she said. The room froze. Every eye turned toward her. The man laughed sharply. This is not a request. Neither was my arrival here. A sharp intake of breath followed. She felt fear surge. Late. Violent. But she did not step back. She has no standing, another man snapped. She was sent as punishment. The word no longer crushed her. I was sent to be erased, she said evenly. You failed. Silence spread. Thick. Unforgiving. The men turned to him. Furious. You allow this. He leaned back slightly. I allow truth. She continued before fear could return. You mistake silence for submission. I was quiet because I had no power. Not because I lacked worth. The man scoffed. You think standing here makes you untouchable. She met his gaze. No. I think touching me would finally reveal who you are. The boss stood. Meeting adjourned. The delegation left in chaos. Not dismissed by force, but dismantled by exposure. Later that night she sat alone. Hands trembling now that the moment had passed. Fear always arrived late. He joined her quietly. You did not beg, he said. She shook her head. I have begged my whole life. It never saved me. He studied her. Something like respect flickering in his eyes. They expected tears. They always do, she replied. I gave them honesty. Consequences came quickly. Messages arrived in coded threats. Alliances wavered. Rumors sharpened into warnings. They blamed her openly now. She is dangerous. She is poisoning him. She is rewriting the rules. She heard it all. This time it did not hollow her. Do you regret this, she asked one night. No. Even if it costs you everything. Especially then. What if it costs me? He met her gaze. Then I failed you. The words struck deeper than any promise. She understood then. She was no longer the punishment. She was no longer the protected. She was the line. And lines in this world were never tested gently. The underworld was watching. Waiting. And for the first time in her life, she did not disappear. She stood and let them see her. The invitation arrived wrapped in black wax. Heavy paper, carefully chosen words. Neutral ground. Summit. Balance. She read it once. Then again. They want me there, she said quietly. He stood by the window. The city stretched beneath him like a map of scars. They want leverage. They think I am it, she replied. They think wrong. Silence followed. Dense. Honest. She understood what neither of them wanted to say. This was no longer about protection. This was about choice. If I do not go, she said, they will escalate. Yes. If I go, they will try to use me. Yes. She inhaled slowly, feeling fear rise. Then settle. Then let them. His jaw tightened. No. This ends with me, she said firmly. One way. You are not a bargaining chip. I know. That is why this works. He looked at her, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. They believe you own me, she continued. They believe I am your weakness. Let them believe it. You could be killed. So could you, she replied. She reached into her pocket, placed a ring on the table. Simple. Heavy. What is this, he asked. A choice. I will walk into that room with your name. Not as punishment. Not as protection. As position. His breath caught. They will never let you leave. They do not have to. I will already be gone. The summit was held in an old opera house. Velvet peeling. Gold dulled by time. Men filled the balconies, watching like vultures. She entered alone. The whispers followed immediately. That is her. The mistake. The problem. She took the center seat. Hands steady. Back straight. The eldest patriarch spoke. You have caused disruption. I survived when she replied. A few men laughed nervously. You are brave, one said. Or foolish. Those words confuse men who rely on fear. The room stiffened. They circled her with words. Offers. Warnings. Threats disguised as mercy. Leave him. We will protect you. Stay quiet. We will spare him. End this peacefully. She listened. Waited. And when it came, when one leaned forward and said, choose. Him or the city. She stood. I already chose. She placed a folder on the table. Inside were names. Ledgers. Accounts. Evidence layered so deeply it could not be separated. Murmurs erupted. You invited me because you thought I was his weakness, she said. You were right. The room leaned. You misunderstood the nature of weakness. Weakness exposes rot. Chaos exploded. Men shouting. Accusations flying. Alliances cracking. She turned and walked out. No one stopped her. They were too busy destroying it. By dawn, arrests were spreading. Families collapsing. Power bleeding into daylight. He found her on the terrace at sunrise. It is done, she said. He looked at her as if the world had shifted. You destroyed them. No, she replied. They destroyed themselves. I just stopped protecting their secrets. She looked at the rising sun. They tried to erase me. They failed. The underworld waited for blood. It always did. After the summit collapsed. After arrests spread like aftershocks. After names, whispered for decades, were dragged into daylight. Everyone waited for the same ending. They waited for him to strike back. To reclaim control with violence. To remind the city who still ruled. It never came. 3 days passed. Then 4. No threats. No executions. No warning fires. Silence. The kind that made powerful men restless. Inside the house, tension tightened instead of easing. Lieutenants whispered. Guards checked exits that had never been questioned before. She felt it in the air. The pressure of expectation. What are you doing? She asked him quietly one night. Ending it, he replied. Ending what? The cycle. She shook her head slowly. You are giving up everything. I am choosing what matters. The announcement came without drama. No public stay. No enemies present. Only his inner circle gathered in the great hall. Men who had followed him through wars. Who had seen cities burn at his command. They stood uncertain. Waiting for orders. You are dismissed, he said. Confusion rippled instantly. This organization. Its operations. Its violence. Ends here. Someone laughed. Nervous. Disbelieving. You cannot mean that. I do. Voices rose. Questions collided. You are dismantling everything. Yes. For her, someone snapped. He did not deny it. For the truth, he corrected. Panic followed. Men rushed to secure assets. Alliances scrambled to fill the vacuum. But there was nothing to take. He had planned this long before the summit. Long before she ever stood in that room. Accounts were frozen legally. Routes closed quietly. Businesses transitioned into legitimate fronts. Weapons sold or destroyed. Evidence handed over through channels she had opened. He was not retreating. He was erasing the battlefield. The underworld did not know how to fight a man who refused to play. She watched it unfold from the balcony. Heart racing. What are you doing? She whispered again. Ending the monster. For me. For both of us. You built this world, she said. I survived it, he corrected. There is a difference. Rivals rushed in days later. Expecting chaos. Expecting weakness. They found nothing. No armies to fight. No territories to seize. Only empty structures. Legitimate businesses. Families protected and funded. The war they wanted never came. The final shock arrived a week later. He appeared publicly. In daylight. No shadows. No guards. He stood beside her. Claimed her. Not as possession. Not as leverage. Not as punishment. As equal. The press erupted. The rumors exploded. The underworld reeled. The fat girl who was given as punishment now stood beside the man who had once terrified cities. And he looked at her like she was the only power he had ever respected. I will not hide you, he told the world. And I will not apologize for you. She did not shrink. Did not bow. She stood. Later, alone, she asked the question she had been afraid to voice. Why me? Because you walked into hell expecting to die. And chose to live without asking permission. Tears filled her eyes. They tried to erase me. They failed. You shocked them, he said. No, she replied softly. You let me exist. The underworld expected blood. Instead, it watched a king lay down his crown. And in doing so, he shattered the most dangerous lie it had ever believed. That power belongs only to fear. Sometimes the greatest shock is this. The woman they tried to punish did not just survive. She ended an empire. The world did not know how to react to what came next. It never does when violence is refused. News traveled fast. Faster than bullets. Faster than threats. The monster had stepped away. Not killed. Not overthrown. Not replaced. Ended. Cities waited for collapse. For chaos. For something to fill the space where fear had lived. Nothing came. Because fear had never been the foundation. It had only been the noise. She walked through the city for the first time without guards. Without permission. Without shrinking. People looked at her. Some recognized her. Most did not. That was the point. She was no longer a symbol they controlled. She was a woman choosing where to stand. He joined her at a quiet overlook at sunset. The skyline stretched wide and ordinary. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. "But I am no longer disappearing to survive it." He nodded. That was the day she understood the final truth. She had not been saved. She had been seen. The difference mattered. The underworld tried to rewrite the story. They always do. They said he had grown weak, that he had been manipulated, that she had destroyed him. She listened, then let it pass. People who need lies to live cannot survive truth. Months later, when the dust had settled, when power rearranged itself into something smaller and less cruel, when families once terrified slept without guards, she stood beside him again. Not in shadows, not behind doors, in light. Someone asked her quietly, "Do you regret it? Regret surviving? Regret speaking? Regret choosing herself?" No. She had lived long enough apologizing for existing. He watched her answer. Something calm and final in his expression. "They thought humiliating you would erase you," he said. "They were wrong. They thought destroying me would restore order. They were wrong again." The city learned new rules slowly. Without ceremony. Women stopped being used as currency. Punishment lost its glamour. Silence lost its power. Not because the world became kind, but because cruelty no longer went unanswered. She returned one last time to the house where everything had changed. The room where she had stood waiting to disappear. Waiting to be erased. She stood there now, unafraid. This place no longer owned her memory. She owned it. Later that night, she spoke the words she had once believed were curses. "I am still here." They were not a challenge. They were a fact. The greatest shock was never what he did. It was what he refused to do. He refused to erase her. Refused to use her. Refused to trade her existence for peace. And in that refusal, the empire fell. Because power built on cruelty cannot survive restraint. And a woman who believes she deserves to exist is more dangerous than any weapon. The world had tried to teach her she was disposable. Instead, she became the ending. Not of a man, not of a story, but of a lie that had ruled for too long.